Awesome. Well, fantastic to meet you all. And what I'd like to do to kick it off is to go around and have everyone introduce themselves and to tell me and the group your name, how long you've been living with type 1 diabetes, or if you're a support person, how long you've been supporting someone who has diabetes. And then what is your relationship with movement and exercise? Can you hear my dog howling? No, he
No.
occasionally howls. He's like knows that I'm on Zoom. He's in the other room howling. He usually only howls for about 30 seconds. So we'll just go around. Who's feeling ready to go? And for this part, it's help. Oh, yes, Nancy. Woohoo! Nancy, thank you. Take it away.
Only because my dog is at the door, and so I'll be able to hear everyone, but I might have to take her out. I'm Nancy Krenner. I've been type 1 since 90, so whatever that is, 30 some years. Um, I haven't gone to a support group since Brad first got his job, and that I went to one. I'm newly retired,
And what's
which
your
is
yeah, and what's your
re
relationship with exercise?
exercise.
Yep, there you go.
It fluctuates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've been very active, and then there have been times I haven't been. And right now I'm in a not very active.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, who's
I'll,
ready to go next? Yes, Carol.
I'll go. So I have had type 1 diabetes for only about 6 years, diagnosed at 71 years old. That's unusual, I guess. But so I've been pretty active most of my life, exercise, and then my husband and I like to go hiking, camping, yeah, but that doesn't happen year round. But um, I do silver sneakers, online classes, virtually every day. And I do a number of different classes, strength training, aerobics, Pilates, balance. So that's my deal.
Yeah, that and diagnosed only 6 years ago. So you
Yeah.
must have been active before you got had your
Oh yeah.
diagnosis.
And
Yeah.
I've been active,
Yeah.
most of my I mean, since my 20s, I think I really started
Nice.
getting very regular.
Okay. All right. Fantastic, Carol. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's next? Who's ready to go next? Carrie, Katie. Yes. Are you actually Katy Perry?
I am the original, the OG.
Love it.
She's about my daughter's age. So anyway, um, I was diagnosed in 2008, 16 years ago at the age of 55. And I had been relatively active on and off, throughout my life, but I got serious. I had a younger sister who died quite young of complications from diabetes and MS and stuff. So I knew it was, it scared me. And so I just set up a twice a week thing with a trainer, and as I've aged and aged and aged, we add in, oh, osteoporosis is a thing and stuff like that, but and I just find for me it works best to like have that appointment and pay the money, and I show up for it, so and that helps a lot.
That makes
Anyway, great to
sense.
be here. Thank you for coming. Good to see
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes. Fantastic. Who's ready to go next? Lisa. Yeah. Take it away.
Okay, my name is Lisa. I was diagnosed in 1969, which makes it 56 years. I am a slow and steady person. So like when I garden in the summer, I'm out there for 6 hours hauling stuff around. When it's time to shovel, I'm like excited because it's exercise. But then when I don't need to shovel, it's a little bit harder. I tend to do like housework and painting inside. And so today I was on the treadmill for 40 minutes. So trying to keep that going. But I don't know that in the summer, when I'm gardening, obviously I'm lifting stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I don't get that strength training much in the winter. It's mostly laundry And snow.
I like it. All right, cool. And who's ready to go next to tell us your name, how long you've been living with type 1, and your relationship with exercise?
Well, I'll go.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Frank Countryman. I am using Linda Countryman's computer, and I am a couple years behind Lisa. I got diabetes 52 years ago, and I am active most of the time. I'm chasing my tail, but you can put in a lot of steps doing that. I am by trade, I am an electrician, so my job is active. Um, but I'm not afraid to do exercise, no.
Nice. Fantastic. Thank you, Frank. And who's ready to go? Mary Pat, are you ready? Yay. Okay.
I was eating dinner.
That's okay. That's okay. Glad you're here.
Yeah. My name's Mary Pat Takis, and I was misdiagnosed in my 50s. I was probably around 52, 53. And the medications didn't work. Smart nurse practitioner figured out it was LADA. I was still trying to hang in there. And I switched endocrinologist because he totally missed the boat, and then started probably in about 2010, I was diagnosed with LADA, and 2011 started on insulin. So that was my story. But I was also in my 50s. They didn't even look to see what was what. I can't hear you. So I don't know if that's me. That's me.
No, I wasn't saying anything. I was just giving you
Okay.
nonverbal feedback.
I started walking a lot with a friend when I was in my 40s, around 40 years old. So I was used to not real vigorous exercise. I used to love skiing, but I didn't live in Minnesota, so I wasn't skiing for all those years. But I also started Zumba probably in 2017. And I have stuck with that. Not every day. I can't say every day. I try for twice a week. I have it on video and then the regular class. So, and when I'm not doing Zumba, we moved from New York to Minnesota, and we live downtown Minneapolis. So we're right by the skyways and the river walk area that I can keep the exercise going. So we made life choices based on continuous access with it. I'm not so much with joining a gym. I tried it, but I'd rather do it on my own time and with less fuss. But I don't sit well. Like to watch a game or something. I gotta be doing something else, moving around. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. Yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Mary Pat. Okay, who's ready? We've got a few people who are on camera. Thank you. Cindy, you ready?
I guess I can go.
Thank you.
I was diagnosed at age 59, so that was like a little over 3 years ago. I just got a pump approaching 6 months ago. I was misdiagnosed. They were treating me as a type 2. I went into ketoacidosis, and I informed them that they would be putting me on insulin, and I didn't want any of their other medications. So all I do is insulin. I don't do any of their other meds. And they wouldn't let me see an endo because they put in my chart that I was a type 2. So for 2.5 years, I never saw an endo. And that,
Wow.
yeah, it's 3 years ago, I exercised more than I do today. So, but I do childcare, so I move around with littles.
They keep you moving. That's true. Well, thank you, Cindy. Welcome to the club you did not want to join. And Who is ready to go next? Elise?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
My name's Elise. I've been diabetic since 2000, since I was 13. Um, I try to be active. I ran a half marathon in January, and so I'm going to try and do another one.
Wow.
But it's more like I'm more of a shuffler, so it's pretty slow, but I try.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah, I'm a hardcore runner, so I can relate to that. Good work. And Trisha, did you have your hand up? Yes, Trisha.
Yep. I've had type 1 since 1989. I was 11, 10. I don't remember anymore. And I had a bunch of surgeries, and so that really stopped me from moving. So I'm walking more now and doing the stretch bands and doing what I can.
Good, good, good. I talk a lot about how to overcome injury. I've had a lot of injuries, so hang in there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, are you ready?
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Blatchley. I've been type 1 for 22 years, so had all my children and was later onset. Yeah, there's the peaks and the valleys, and I'm doing better than last year as far as averages and A1C. Yeah, I'm just have a positive mindset to learn more, and I'm also engaging or listening into some of the podcasts that are available too for encouragement. So
Yeah, there's a lot of them these days.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And Kate, you look ready. Oh. Can anyone else hear Kate? No, we can't hear you for some reason. And Kate's husband, we can see that you're muting and unmuting, but it's not actually giving any sound. You can hear us, right? Okay. We still can't hear you. Darn.
The reboot.
Okay, how about this, Kate? Can you put your answer in the chat? Still can't hear. We still can't hear. And I'm not really sure. I'm not a Zoom expert to know how to fix your.
Is it working?
Yes, yes.
Yay!
I'm done.
Oh my God, this is my first time doing this. So Brad, give me thanks for doing this for the first time. I'm joining the group. But anyway, yes, my name is Kate, and I've had diabetes since I was 8, and so that makes it 58 years. I'm retired, just retired. So I love exercise. I've always done some type of exercise. I'm a marathon runner, not anymore. I quit doing that. But anyway, the point is, I walk every day when I can. Yeah, I walk pretty much every day and do whatever I can exercise wise. And
love it.
It makes me feel good. Yeah.
Well, that's the secret.
And then just a FYI, then I have a sister that also has diabetes. So there's 2 of us. And so anyway.
Yep. My brother has type 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so does she. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
All right. Well, cool. Good to meet you. All right. Let's see.
I can jump in.
Oh,
I'm actually Troy, and I stole my wife's computer as well as the
Troy.
gentleman. Had diabetes for about 23 years, diagnosed simultaneously with hemochromatosis, and that's all good. But type 1, doing relatively well, and I'm an all or nothing exercise person. So Super Bowl weekend, I always panic and realize I haven't done anything for 4 months and start up again. But it's truly all or nothing. So I'll play softball too much, golf too much, hike too much. Can't sit around and just be in a gym watching other people sweat. So that's my drill.
I love it. Okay. And Troy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Fantastic. What's your wife's name?
Lynn,
Lynn. Okay. And so Karen is your last name?
it is. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Catching on here.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Troy.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. And let's see, Nicole and Greg, I think are our last two. Greg, you're multitask. Oh, there you go. Not exercising a ton and eating dinner and listening right now. Greg, hi, Greg. Glad you're here. And Nicole, your turn.
Hi, I was doing the same thing. I was eating too. Hi, I'm Nicolette, Nikki, and I've been a type 1 diabetic for about just a little over 10 years now, diagnosed at 36. And I've always been really, really active. I mean, up until then for sure. And then did pretty good the first couple years. I'd say I am definitely like a baby. I hibernate in the winter. So like I hit it really hard in the summer and then I don't walk or run a whole lot in the winter. But I'm noticing as I'm getting older and having, either peri or menopausal stuff, it's really hard to do the like stop for 6 months and start 6 months. So I need to kind of get that in check a little bit, but that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, thank you. And Nicolette, is that how you say your name?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Nicolette. Okay. And Brad, tell us your story.
So just been living with diabetes for about 17 years. So diagnosed at 23. Activity's been huge, but it's been a little bit more on the back burner as of recent. But I've done a half marathon. I've done a couple triathlons. And do a little bit more beach volleyball. So I play a lot of sand dunes beach volleyball, which is good exercise, but the body just doesn't love it as much as it used to for long periods of time. Dabble with a little bit of pickleball. So yep, love being active. And so thanks.
Fantastic. All right. And Sherry, you just joined. I don't know if you see the slides yet, but if you feel comfortable, tell us your name, how long you've had type 1, and what's your relationship with exercise. If you want to unmute. Oh, yay. Good, good.
Yeah, so I've been type 1 diabetic almost 49 years. And I was diagnosed in the 70s. And my favorite exercise, is that what you wanted to know or?
Favorite or just what's your relationship with exercise?
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I'm feeling pretty good, up to exercising, well, I usually either walk or use like an elliptical kind of bicycle at least 3, 4 times a week.
Nice. All right. Well, fantastic to meet you all. I really appreciate that Brad reached out to me. Brad works in the office where my endocrinologist works. Maybe some of you see Dr. Madison. She's my person. And I'm now on slide 3. And basically it was June of 1981. And I had just turned 16 and I was a normal teenage girl and I thought I was fat. I was not actually fat, but I thought I was. So oh, thank you. You've got the slides there. Fantastic. And because I lost like 15 pounds in 2 weeks, I thought that was fantastic. I was doing something I didn't even know what I was doing. And I didn't pay any attention to the fact that I was also super thirsty and really tired all the time. And the day of June 26th, I went to a birthday party and I had a really big sandwich that had a lot of bread on it. I had a whole lot of chips and I ate a really big piece of birthday cake. And my mother never purchased sugar soda pop and they were serving it at this birthday party. So I had a couple of big glasses of sugar soda pop. I'm pretty sure it was a Sprite 7-Up variety. And I got home and I felt terrible. And at dinner, I told my mom and dad how bad I felt. And my dad looked at my mom, and my dad said, "Hey, why don't you take some of my test tape and go upstairs and pee on it and come on back down?" And I had never done that. My dad had type 1, and it was 1981, which was before much blood testing. So I did that, and I came back downstairs and I sat on the couch and I just started crying because the test tape had turned the darkest green that it could turn, which meant that there was a lot of sugar in my urine. And we didn't go to the doctor that night. We waited until the next day because apparently you could do that if your family, if someone in your family has diabetes, then they knew I wasn't going to die overnight. And the next morning, the pediatrician said, "Well, your blood sugar is 350 milligrams per deciliter." And my dad said, "Oh, that's not good." And the endocrinologist, or the pediatrician, she was not an endocrinologist, she said, "Well, she might not have type 1. Let's put her on a strict diet for a month and see what happens." So I went on this super strict diet, and I proceeded to get worse. I lost more weight. I felt terrible. And finally, at the end of the month, I learned on an orange how to give shots. And there it was. I had type 1 diabetes. And because my father also had type 1, and I had watched him have low blood sugars literally minimum once a year, where the paramedics had to come because my father was 6'4", and he would go into convulsions when his blood sugar would go low, and we couldn't get sugar into his body. So the paramedics would come and they would hold him down and they would pump glucose into him. And I had watched that my entire childhood and thinking essentially that he was going to die at least once a year. And as a result, that created what I now understand to be PTSD, medical PTSD. So I grew up with that kind of trauma related to my health. And additionally, I am a sexual abuse survivor, and my perpetrators are my father, my grandfather, and a babysitter. And so I had froze and vacated my body many, many times from age 9 months to about age 11. And I did not spend any time when I was in danger in my body. So I learned how to exit my body pretty easily. And it turns out that those of us with high ACE scores, ACE, adverse childhood experiences, that's what ACE stands for, we often have a high correlation of chronic illnesses. That's one of the not so great side effects of having a difficult childhood with a lot of trauma in it. So I was not athletic. I was rebellious. I did not want to cause as much trauma as my father had created for us with his, he had undiagnosed or hypoglycemia unawareness. He often didn't know when he was having low blood sugar. And I did not want to cause that kind of anxiety in the people around me. So I purposefully, once blood testing came around, which was a few years later, I made sure that my blood sugar was always just a little bit high so that I wouldn't have these terrible low blood sugars. Well, by the time I hit 30, I was not in good health. And the endocrinologist I was seeing at that point, she basically said, "You're going to die if you don't get," my A1C at that point was 13.5. I mean, it was bad. And I was 30 years old. And I thought, well, maybe I should start doing something to change this. And so I did start exercising just a little bit because, again, I was so afraid of low blood sugars. And finally, by the time I was 39, I did my first big bike ride. I fell in love with biking. I almost married a man who got a gold medal in down cross country skiing, and he's paralyzed. He's a T12 paralyzed athlete, and he taught me how to bike ride because he would ride on his hand cycle behind me. And he would say that he would yell because we were riding bikes. He'd yell, perfect circles, perfect circles. And I was like, what's my excuse? I just have diabetes. He can't walk, so I should ride my bike. And he was actually really, really supportive. So when I did that 400-mile bike ride across Colorado, I was feeling amazing. And then I couldn't quite recover from the exertion of riding 400 miles. And the endocrinologist I was seeing at that time, he had me do all these different tests. And then I did that bike ride in June and July of whatever year it was. And I was then diagnosed in October with the first time I had breast cancer. I was 39 at that point. And I rode my bike to and from radiation therapy. It was kind of crazy that I did that, but I was like, I'm a cyclist. I'm going to keep riding my bike. And so that's a little bit of my athletic story, and I'll tell you some more as we go. And then I've had a lot of different careers. I was a high school Spanish teacher, then I was a high school principal, and then I owned a company called Team Wild. We inspire life with diabetes. And with Team Wild, we created online programs to be triathletes, marathoners, half marathon runners, walkers, and cyclists. So I learned a lot about how do you manage a chronic illness and be an endurance athlete. And so that was a really critical point of my career path. And now I work at the University of Minnesota as an internship coordinator, and I write books, and I'm a blogger. And then I have a side gig teaching people how to use LinkedIn because, like many of you, I like to keep busy. So one of the things I did, and it took me 10 years to write this book, is I wrote the book, Extreme Healing, and you can go on to slide 4 now. Yep, there you go. There you go. So essentially, what I wrote in this book is how do you go from being a victim of your health challenges to being an athlete? And the first 6 chapters of this book are the steps in how do you move from being a victim to being an athlete. And it's essentially what I applied to myself. And I just sort of put it all together for other people as well as for myself. So here we go. And by the way, if you have any questions, I would love it if you would ask as we go, and there'll be a time at the end as well. And you can put it in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and wave your hand, and we'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and ask. So we'll just go through these 6 chapters, and I'll give you a little overview of how they worked in my life and how I've seen them work for other people. So slide number 5 is to begin with the belief. So I had a really hard time thinking of myself as an athlete. When I was in high school, I did not do athletics. And like I said, I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 16, and I watched my father have low blood sugars when he exercised. So that fear of low blood sugars was directly connected to watching what happened to my father. And what I had learned in my career of working with a lot of high school age students, and then also working with Team Wild, is that what we think of ourselves and what our beliefs are about who we are informs how we show up in the world. And when I was 30 and got that notice from that endocrinologist that I was on the fast track to death, I came home and I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to keep living if I'm going to manage my diabetes. The one key thing I was missing was regular movement. And I hired a personal trainer. I appreciate those of you who've hired trainers because they are very wise people. And one of the things that she talked to me about was this notion of claiming the title athlete. And I was terrified of calling myself an athlete. I thought, I'm just faking it. I'm just, pretending that I'm an athlete because I'm not fast. I'm not super coordinated. Like, how do I even count as an athlete? And this trainer, her name was Sue. She's like, Mari, just claim it. Just pretend you're an athlete, and then you will become it. And I was like, well, Sue, you're really smart. And okay, I'll try it. So it's a little bit like having a mantra, and it's a little bit like just claiming that identity and that it becomes true as you go along. So that's the whole first step is to claim it and own it, that you actually can be an athlete. So slide number 2. Well, it's actually, sorry, not number 2. There we go. Chapter number 2. So this part often gets left out for those of us who live with a chronic health condition. And this is where one of the things that I think is really critical is to actually name what your challenges are. And naming them doesn't mean that you're traveling down a negative path. It means that you're naming it so that you can reframe it and you can actually change it. But if you don't really own it and really claim even your health concerns and your health challenges, you can't really solve it and figure out what kind of support and help you need. And then the other thing that I've gone through a lot because I've had 3 cancer diagnoses. The most recent was 2.5 years ago, so fairly recent, is that when your sense of who you are is shattered or deeply impacted, we go through the stages of grief. And the stages of grief are often presented as a linear thing, and really they're not. They're much more circular, and you can go in and out of different stages. And like when I was 16 and got diagnosed, I at first I was just in denial, like this can't really be happening. And that whole month where I wasn't on insulin, where I knew that insulin was sort of looming, because I'd watched my dad sharpen his needles with a whetting stone and boiling everything on the stove, because that was he was diagnosed in 1964. Those of you who've had diabetes a long time, you remember those days. And I knew that was coming for me. So at first I was in denial, and then I was pissed off, and I was like, I do not want to be like my dad. And then I do remember bargaining as well. And I did go through a stage of being pretty depressed. And then it was like, you know what? I'm not going to be like him. I'm going to tell my dad hid his diabetes from everyone except those of us in the family who knew. And I was like, I'm going to tell everybody that I have diabetes. And I just announced it all over the place. And I remember I took a bus to the American Diabetes Association, which at that point was in Edina, and I lived in St. Paul. And I was like, well, I'm going to go find out everything I can about diabetes. And I found out about Camp Needlepoint, and I went to Camp Needlepoint as a counselor in training. And that was on the edge of acceptance. And every time I've gotten diagnosed with cancer, because at 3 different times it was like I grew cancer again from scratch each time. And I still don't have metastatic cancer. It hasn't gone anywhere else. Is to go through those stages of grief and to know that going through those stages is normal. So a few of you referenced how you're not in a great place at this moment. And I think it's helpful to be able to name things, and knowing that you are possibly in a stage of grief can be really helpful for helping you move through it. And then there's another thing which is called it's used in motivational interviewing, and it's called the stages of change, or it's called what's the word? I wrote it down because it's such a big word. Trans theoretical, I think, is the word. Oh, it's not here. Trans theoretical model, aka stages of change. And these stages of change are used when you're trying to help someone's behavior transform. And I've used these stages of change when I'm helping teenagers, and I realized that I could use this model of change on myself. And there's 4 or 5 stages. And the first one is pre-contemplation. And that's when you don't really think you have an issue. You're not really considering making a change. You're just, sort of ignoring it. So that's pre-contemplation. And then there's contemplation, which is where you're thinking about it. You're like, well, maybe I should try changing. And then you shift into preparation, where you acknowledge that you are going to change and you make plans to actually change. And then my favorite place now is action, where you actually change your behavior and take action and do something different than you were doing before. And then there's maintenance, where you keep going. And, we can go through the stages of change often and, year after year, depending on the year. So that is, I find very, very helpful when I recognize, especially as I got a new cancer diagnosis, to let myself go through these stages of change. And then there's something called the inner healer. And I am a big time believer that each of us has an inner healer, and that it's worth our time and energy to talk to that wise, wise, wise part of ourselves. I mean, all of you have been living with type 1 for a while. We are the ones who know ourselves the best in terms of how we manage our diabetes. And that's in part because we have very wise inner healers. And there's different names you can use for that. But when I got diagnosed with cancer this most recent time, I had to go on a medication that shut down all of my body's ability to make estrogen. And I was launched into extreme daily pain, because my bones hurt, my back. I never had back pain in my life. And all of a sudden I had all this back pain. My shoulders hurt. They thought I had frozen shoulder. Turns out it was just the lack of estrogen. And my body's got clamped down. And estrogen is made all over the body. And now it wasn't making any. And I was like, okay, inner healer, I really need some help here. And that wise part of myself, you need to get to PT. You need to find some people to help you, because this level of pain is not sustainable if you're going to stay on this drug. And my oncologist, bless her soul, she wrote me I can go to PT as much as I want, which is kind of hilarious. And it's kind of like having a personal trainer that your insurance actually pays for. So so that's really the next step, I think, is to really identify and face and recognize where you are in relationship to whatever health challenges you're facing. Okay, slide number 7. So then the next thing, and this is a really interesting idea of what are the fears and obstacles that we have, especially as it relates to our health challenges. and our relationship to movement. Now, those of you who are super comfortable with movement, yay. And I still run into fears. And they say that our brains stay healthy the more we try new things. So I figure, okay. And I loved cross country skiing when I was younger. And then I moved away. I lived in California for a while and I forgot how to cross country ski. And when I came back to Minnesota, I was like, I should really try cross country skiing. So I went and bought a pair of skis and I was terrified to actually go out and ski because I couldn't remember how. So for 3 years, I did not use those skis. And then finally, a friend of mine sent a text message to a group of us, and she said, I'm going to take some ski lessons at Como Park, aka Mount Como, which is hilarious because it's a super tiny little hill. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go learn how to cross country ski. And I was so scared at first. But because I was in the class, because I was with people, and because we had some instructors who were very, very patient, I did learn how to cross country ski again. And I still love it. And we've had a little more snow this year, so I've actually gone a couple times. But the thing that I think is important is if you're in a stuck place, is to define the obstacles and to name the fears, and then to reframe them. And reframing is a tricky skill. And I think that most people who live a long time with diabetes have this skill, especially those of you who are living more than 50 years with type 1 and you're still here and you're still in good health. You have the skill of reframing. And reframing is essentially the ability to take a negative thing or a negative thought and to change it into something that is helpful. And I struggle with not wanting to be a Pollyanna or just they call it toxic positivity. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability to just change how you look at a thing and to discover what can you learn from this thing? How could you solve this challenge? How could you, just look at it slightly differently in a way that's actually helpful? I just went on the twist pump a month ago and I love it. It is so cool. And every time I change the pump or change the set, my blood sugar is skyrocketing. It's going up to like 300 and there's no reason. It happened today. And I was like, this is so terrible. So I anticipated that it would happen. And I knew the insulin was good because I triple checked that it was a fresh bottle and it was clear and all the good things. And I made sure that the infusion set went in correctly. And I just watched my carb count was perfect. I just watched my blood sugar creep up, up, and up. And it went up to 320. And I'm like, geez, Louise, why is this happening? And the rep, she texted me and she's like, how's it going with the twist? And I said, well, I'm just noticing this pattern. And she taught me. And so it was again, what can I learn? How can I make this pump work for me? And she told me I needed to do a couple things, which was to hold the tubing upright while it was priming before I attached it to my body to make sure that all the air was getting out. And then there was another little trick that she taught me, and now I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, cool. I can hardly wait till I can try it again. Today, what I did is I went for a 45-minute walk because I was like, well, I know I have enough insulin in there somehow, and I know that the walk will lower my blood sugar. And it did. And now my blood sugar is just fine. So it's this idea of what can I learn? Because overall, this pump is fantastic. Once the insulin is all working, my blood sugars are better than they've ever been. And I love the line there's a projected blood sugar line. Oh my gosh, that thing is magical. And then along the way is as you're confronting and talking with your fears and obstacles is to give yourself a lot of time, space, and grace. Now, connected to this part, I alluded and mentioned that I'm a sexual abuse survivor, and I have done a lot of therapy. And I'm a really big believer in getting mental health support. And living with chronic illnesses is hard. And having a place to go where you can process. And one of the things I've discovered with all the PTSD that I had from my childhood is that kind of childhood and that kind of distress actually lives in the body. And we, unlike other mammals, don't have a way to get it out of our bodies. You know, a lot of animals shake or they have techniques to get it out, and we don't. We often just stuff it, and it still stays in our nervous system. So I've done a lot of somatic therapy where I actually shake and get it out of my nervous system. I do a lot of rhythmic breathing, which has helped a lot as well. So just, I want to throw that in there as options. Okay, slide number 8. And then you got to get out the door. So I am a huge fan of keeping things interesting. So I make an effort every year. I've done a half Ironman, which is a 0.9-mile swim, followed by a 56-mile bike ride, followed by a half marathon. And I did that in 2019 and then, sorry, 2009. And then in 2010, I was planning to do a full Ironman, and then I was diagnosed with cancer for a second time. So I did not do that, but I have done 2 marathons and I've done probably 10 or 11 100-mile bike rides. And getting out the door and knowing what gets you out the door is really helpful. And the first level is what I call what it's called. I didn't make up this name, is the concept of internal motivation. And clearly all of you who are here tonight, you have a lot of internal motivation because you showed up tonight. And external motivation is having something that's outside of you that causes motivation. And I have a lot of internal motivation, but I sure like external motivation. And external motivation for me is a start line at a race. So I have already signed up for the Twin City Marathon weekend, and there's an event called the Looney, and it's where you run on Saturday, you run a 5K and then a 10K, or no, it's 10K, then a 5K. And then the next day you run the 10-mile. The ultra loony is you do the 10K, 5K, and then the full marathon. No more full marathons for me. So that's what I call external motivation. And getting that medal around my neck is very motivational. And then there's the concept of inspiration, which watching the Olympics is inspirational, but it may not translate to actual motivation. So it's recognizing that inspiration exists, and then how do you move it from inspiration to motivation? So I go into that in this chapter here. All right, slide number 9. And then signing up for the actual event, which I covered that in the previous one, but it's basically one of the key things I always do is visualize myself at the event. I write a race plan. I play the believing game, and this is especially I'm a slow runner, so I usually run 11 and a half to 13-minute miles, which is not fast. And I still play the believing game, and that's where I believe that I will finish the event. And I did this for all the 100-mile bike rides I did. And it's an actual thing. If you Google believing game, you'll find a description of what it means to play the believing game and actually sign up. And I use mantras all the time. When I write my race plan, I always put my mantras in there, and I am an athlete is one of them. I often say to myself, I am strong. I can do this. And to be really intentional about your mantras and not use the word no in the mantra because your brain can't register. So, like, you don't want to say, don't go slow because what your brain hears and does is say, go slow. So, you want to actually keep it really framed positive. Before I had my mastectomy, I wrote a whole bunch of mantras about how I was going to make it through that surgery. And it was incredible. I actually had a nurse in the surgery room who was managing my blood sugars and my insulin pump during the entire surgery. And I came out and my blood sugar was 170. And they were shocked because usually they make people turn their pumps off. But I had arranged for that nurse to be in there, and she did not turn my pump off. And as a result, I healed a lot faster. So that's connected to that is really being your own advocate and having mantras. Okay, slide number 10. And this is one of my favorite parts, which is to realize that you are the CEO of you. And this is how you advocate for yourself, is believing that you are your CEO. And you gather a team around you for events or things you want to do. And in my case, having physical and mental health people on your team, having coaches, I've used coaches at different points, and then friends and family that support you, and pay attention to who doesn't really support you and let them at least move away, move aside so that they're not really uh, getting in your way of being able to achieve your athletic goal. And find some friends or family who will do the event or the race with you. And if you can, find some clubs or groups it's all what gets you going. I mean, a number of you mentioned that you don't really want to go to a gym. I don't go to the gym very often. I only go there to swim and run. And I do all my weightlifting here at home because I can't afford to get the flu or COVID. So I am really careful about my immune system. So those are the first 6 chapters of the book, and in slide 11 are the other chapters of the book. And it's what to wear and what gear you need. Athletes eat. I know a lot about food. I don't eat out hardly at all. I cook all my own food. And my friends and we regularly do potlucks, so we're eating each other's food. And I'm kind of obsessed with how much I sleep. I am so careful to get enough sleep, 8 to 9 hours a night. I have a whole chapter about training plans. I have a chapter about how to plan your race and write actually a race plan. And then how do you keep going? I'm now 60 and I can tell that I don't know how much longer I'm going to have, especially now dealing with this third cancer. You just never know. So how do I make everything work for me and hang in there for me for as long as I have? And then chapter 13 is how you just tie it all together and make it yours. And then I don't know if any of you know about the Tour de Cure, which is a bike ride put on by the American Diabetes Association. And all of the riders who have diabetes wear special jerseys that are the Red Rider jerseys. And I'm the person who created that in 2007. And that was because of my experience being an athlete with cancer. And I was like, actually, I'm in the unique position to understand that being an athlete with diabetes is harder. So we need some recognition. So that's why we created that. Okay, let's take the slides down and anyone got any questions or any comments? And there's a review of the book. And then there's a slide in there about how to stay connected and or order your copy of the book. But I want to know if anybody has any questions. Yes, Carol.
Well, I have more of a comment than a question. I'm a retired psychotherapist, psychologist. worked for Health Partners for many years.
Yeah.
And but I retired right around the same time that I was diagnosed with type 1. But I just think you've got a lot of wonderful suggestions for using, connecting with a therapist, using good mental health techniques to help yourself cope with diabetes or other illnesses. And I've volunteered with Brad to do a presentation. I have a lot of experience with using imagery and I'm blanking on my words, but to help people visualize positive images and success. And so I'm just very excited about what you are doing. And so I think I'll get your book and read it for myself, because I think sounds like there are a lot of great ideas there.
Well, that's the idea. At the end of every chapter is a section called Try This. And it's full of ideas and actions of how to actually implement the things I talk about in the chapter. So it's how do you, and I mean, it's because I've gone to therapy. I've gone to a lot of therapy. So I've learned a lot of techniques and I just rolled them into the book.
Good.
So I've done a lot of journaling, and it's a journaling-ish type of process. So yeah, and for sure stay in touch. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments either way? Anything is okay. I mean, so one of the things that I do mention in the book is I did attempt suicide twice. And that was after the second cancer diagnosis. And it was because I felt like I was a failure. And I had still done a lot of therapy before that, but I hadn't dealt with my shadow side yet. And the shadow side is another kind of important thing to deal with. And it was essentially that shadow side that really did not believe I was worthy of being alive. And I didn't have depression, but the side effect of all that PTSD was just really not feeling worthy of living. And having diabetes, having cancer twice, really fed into that shadow belief. And the suicide, I actually met Dr. Madison when she was in the psychiatric ward, and she was the endocrinologist that they assigned to me. And she was incredible. And I was like, okay. And because I didn't die, I mean, I should have died. Like, it was a miracle I was alive. And when I came to after being in a coma for 5 days, I was like, okay, I'm not going to die. I'm here. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And writing this book was part of putting it all together.